Let's wrap up this chapter with concept 27.6. It says prokaryotes have both beneficial and harmful impacts on humans. So we oftentimes don't think about these very small creatures that we can't see with our own eyes, these archaea and these bacteria, but they are a major portion of life on planet Earth, and they do have a major impact on humans. Some of these prokaryotes are human pathogens. They cause illness and sickness and death, but others have positive interactions with humans. They help us in certain ways, especially they play essential roles in some of our agriculture and our industry and things of that nature. Many of the bacteria that we talk about that interact with humans are mutualistic. The human intestines contain 500 to 1,000 different species of bacteria, and most of them are mutualists. They provide us some sort of benefit, and we provide them a benefit as well. They help us break down and digest food and get out certain nutrients that we couldn't do by ourselves. Without these bacteria that live inside of our intestines, we wouldn't be able to effectively digest and absorb a lot of the nutrients that come from our food. So we would have to eat quite a bit more, and we wouldn't get as much from it if we didn't have these beneficial bacteria. Now, the downside of having all these living creatures inside of us is there are some side effects. For example, if you ever wondered why you fart, well, that would be because of the millions of bacteria that live inside your intestines. As a matter of fact, you can go to an entire Wikipedia page about flatulence and learn all about it, but that's a side effect of having these bacteria that live inside of our intestines. So I think a little bit of flatulence is an okay price to pay for the benefit we get from these bacteria. Of course, our relationship with bacteria is not all good times and farting. Sometimes these bacteria are harmful. They cause diseases. They cause death. Some of them are pathogenic. A good example is the pathogen that causes Lyme disease. Prokaryotes cause about half of all human disease, including this little spirochete here that causes Lyme disease carried by ticks. You get bitten by a tick. This tick happened to have bitten another creature that had the spirochete bacteria inside of its bloodstream, and that gets passed on to you and causes Lyme disease, which includes this kind of target-shaped rash and fever and illness, and can even lead possibly to hospitalization if it's severe enough. One interesting note is that all pathogenic prokaryotes that we know of are bacteria. So far we haven't found any pathogenic prokaryotes that are archaea. So if it's an infection or it causes a problem with humans, it's probably bacteria, and it's not likely to be archaea. These bacteria, these pathogenic prokaryotes, can usually cause problems inside our body in a couple different ways. A couple different ways they can cause diseases or symptoms, and that's by releasing either what's called exotoxins or endotoxins. Exotoxins are chemicals that they give off and that cause different problems and diseases. And these exotoxins are chemicals that you can come into contact with even if the prokaryote that makes these chemicals is no longer around. So you could have, say, a food that was infected by a bacteria, and then that bacteria has been killed off or is now removed, but if the chemical gets left behind, the exotoxin gets left behind, you're still going to get sick. You're still going to have a problem. So examples of this are cholera and botulism. These are problems caused by exotoxins released by the bacteria. The other variety is called endotoxins, and endotoxins are chemicals that are released as part of the cell wall of the creature, and these endotoxins are only released when the bacteria die and their cell wall starts to break down and disintegrate. A good example is the outer membrane of some of these gram-negative bacteria, these lipopolysaccharide components that cause problems that are toxic to our body. They cause fever and shock, and you can find good examples in typhoid fever and salmonella poisoning. Those are endotoxins, like when you get salmonella poisoning, which is a type of food poisoning. If you eat, say, a taco from a street vendor and their food wasn't well prepared or kept at the right temperature, the salmonella bacteria, as it dies and the cell walls break down inside your body, you start to get these endotoxins released, and it causes you to get quite sick. One problem in dealing with these pathogenic bacteria is this idea of horizontal gene transfer that can spread genes associated with virulence between different bacteria. So you can have like E. coli, which is normally not pathogenic, but there are versions of E. coli that are problematic, and the problematic portions of that genetic code can be sent on to other species, and then it can then make you sick with those as well. So horizontal gene transfer can pass on pathogenic genetics from one species to another. And then some pathogenic bacteria can even be used as weapons. You may recall a few years back there was an anthrax scare, and there are certain types of bacteria that are actually thought of or could be used as terrorist type weapons, bioterrorism, such as anthrax. Anthrax is actually, I had never heard of it except in animals, because it's a bacteria that lives in the soil and sometimes gets accidentally eaten by sheep and cows and that type of thing. So when I studied agricultural science, anthrax was a problem or a disease that crops up in animals on occasion. But then a few years back, of course, there was kind of a bioterrorism scare where anthrax was sent in the mail in envelopes to different people, and so you could potentially use living creatures as weapons if you were of that kind of mind. Last but not least, prokaryotes are used oftentimes in research and technology. We have done huge numbers of experiments with the different prokaryotes, especially in regards to DNA technology, especially E. coli. We've used it in gene cloning. We already mentioned the agrobacterium, which was used to produce transgenic plants such as golden rice. You can text on page 816, you can read about golden rice. So we use various prokaryotes in the laboratory doing various types of scientific experiments and research, and now bacteria can be used in industry to make things like natural biodegradable plastics. They're also used for bioremediation to help clean up chemical spills and oil spills and to decompose sewage and waste. Bacteria can be bioengineered to produce chemicals that we want, like vitamins or antibiotics or hormones, and they can even be used to produce fuel. We can use waste like plant waste, like the remains of crops, and that can be broken down using bacteria to form ethanol, which can then be used to mix with gasoline to form a type of fuel that we can run in our automobiles. So prokaryotes have an amazing ability to either help us or harm us, and it's kind of cool to think that there is an entire world of creatures, actually 2 out of the 3 domains, that we never even see. They live on us and in us and around us, and we never really think about what they do or where they are, but they certainly have a big impact on our world. So again, here's some examples of bioremediation and creating fuel and things of that nature. So we're going to stop right there. We've talked a lot about the bacteria and the archaea and all the prokaryotes. And this little sign says, remember, prokaryotes rule the world, and they certainly do. They outnumber us, they were here before us, and trust me, they'll probably be here after us as well. We're going to stop right there. Next chapter, we go on to the eukaryotic creatures. We're going to start with the protists, and if you thought there was a lot of variety and a lot of gray and a lot of crazy in the prokaryotic creatures, wait till you get to the protists. As Hank Green says, the protists are a big hot mess. So we're going to stop right there. We'll pick it up with chapter 28. Have a good day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.